I mean, there is so many talk shows out here, and I know, James, you know what I'm going to be saying. And no, I'm not going to be saying warm and fuzzy, okay? I promise that. But I just did, so I snuck that in. But you know what? It takes a while, for people to discover you. And then when they start discovering you, then all of a sudden it's like, wow, it's... And it's probably the best thing I ever did. And I want to again thank Art Bell, who's passed a year ago, as of the other day, to get me back out of retirement and doing what I do, is talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a good talker.
I'm glad you did too. It is, I do, listening to you say that though, I do believe, and I hear people that I know, that have been in terrestrial radio for a long time, and they really know what they're talking about. They all believe, and I do too now, that this is the future of radio, what you're doing and what I'm doing now, and the online shows. And it amazes me how many shows, like you sound great. It's amazing how many shows, listen, there's a reason why you and I do radio. I have a face for radio. And you're good at what you do. That's why you're on radio. Now, there's so many out there. You can tell they don't really care. They're I don't know what that's all about. If it's how their studio is set up, or who's the station that's hosting their show, or what kind of equipment they use. But so many of the shows the audio is terrible. And you just wonder what that's all about. I mean, in radio, I learned the hard way very quickly that if you don't have good audio, then you don't have a good show, and your listener base just is going to fall off. Whatever listener base you're lucky to have is going to fall off. What's your take on that?
Well, you said it just right on the thing. James knows what I'm going to say. The problem is, okay, you got Facebook Live. You got people going to Walmart and buying a USB microphone for like $12.95. They plug it in their computer, and now, I hate to say it, there's a lot of people who play talk show host. Now, that really upsets me because, before I decided to come back on radio, when Art kept, prodding me for weeks, he goes, do it. And I didn't listen to it. I have to be honest with you. Being a biker, okay, most of my adult life, I figured, hey, I've done paranormal since 1976. I wanted to do something different. So I created a show called Motorcycle Talk. After about 2 months, I get a phone call from Art, and he goes, you don't have any listeners, do you? And I go, no, I don't, Art. I got maybe 15. And I said, I'm going to pull the plug. He goes, no, Gary, go back like you used to be when you were in commercial radio. And it took me about a year to get into the swing of it because I was out of it for a while. I'm retired, or I was.
Yeah.
But, I'm really frustrated when I see somebody going on Facebook Live doing a show, right? They're sitting there eating, drinking beer, and doing a so-called talk show, and they don't know anything what they're talking about. And then you go on the internet and you start listening to all the shows out there, and there's a lot of them are like that. But you know what? They're trying at least. But, it gives you a chance, though, for the listeners to pick out different type of shows and listen to what they want to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the ones with the bad mics, I mean, people can see right through that. They're not going to tune back in. People's eating and drinking and cussing and burping and all this stuff on there. It's crazy.
No, that's not the way talk radio should be. I saw James. That's how I met James a long time ago. He was doing a Facebook Live, and I looked at him. I go, gee, this guy has capabilities. And, I got a hold of him. And I've been working with James, and he has advanced so far doing his show on Saturdays. I mean, just learning the ropes. And I, it makes me feel good that somebody went from, no offense, James, from Facebook Live to doing your own show and developing a good listenership.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for giving me the chance. But I was never one for drinking and cussing and all that or smoking on air. But some do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have the a hard time with what am I going to do if my guest cancels at the last minute. Well, I usually, with a minute or two left to make a concrete decision, and let my station manager and the program director know what I'm going to do. Because I usually find out with just a minute or two before we go live that they're a no-call, no-show, or they just call in real quick and have an excuse why they can't do it. I have yet to develop and I suppose it's just all a confidence thing, but I have yet to develop to the point where that doesn't matter to me now. I'm just going to go ahead and wing it and do my own little song and dance by myself for 2 hours. I just don't know how to do that, so I will make the judgment call at the last second for them to just go ahead and play a best of. And I've got a ton of best ofs. I've been on since October of 2015, and I have to still pay for that airtime. So it's not a freebie or a cop out, but I opt to go ahead and play a best of because I just feel the audience deserves more than just to listen to me babble for 2 hours. I promised them a guest all week long. I've promoted it, and that's what I think they deserve. And so I think I'm robbing them of that if all of a sudden now they're just going to get me babbling about whatever for 2 hours. I know the time is going to come where I have to get over that, but that's my big hurdle right now.
Well, I have done that too, where I have played one of my prior shows, or I'll call up James. I usually try to now have a backup guest that I can call, one that, I'll make arrangements with one and say, hey, I might be able to get you on any night during the next 2 weeks. So if somebody doesn't show up, I can quickly call them up and get them on at the last moment. Now, yeah. I think you might remember, James, back about a month and a half ago, I went for 2 hours talking about the economy, talking about the fence, talking about, earth changes. And actually, I'll be honest with you, Shawn, I had the highest listenership ever when I did that. But you know what?
I've heard that. People tell me that all the time. Don't worry about it. You might even put on one of your, some of your best shows ever doing that. I have to get over, somehow I have to psychologically get over that hurdle. And I do have that list too. I have a list of a dozen or so friends that make wonderful guests, and they're on the last minute cancellation backup list. But, with just a couple of minutes to go and have to make that decision, I'll call a couple of them real quick, and they have lives too. It's like I don't blame them for not being ready, because now I've called them with, 2 minutes to go on a Monday night before my show goes live, and they had no warning. And I understand if they didn't answer the phone or went to voicemail, or I called them right in the middle of the dinner and they just can't make it work, or they're at work or something. So, it is what it is. But that's a psychological hurdle I'm going to have to get over, because I've been told that same thing. I've been told that you may just surprise yourself and have some of the best shows you've ever done when it's just you off the cuff. Oh, yeah.
And it happens. And one thing I will say, and then we'll get back into the paranormal side here. And we got a break coming up here in about 8 minutes. But, I will say that a lot of people think because, oh, gee, this guy's on a whole bunch of radio stations, he's making a lot of money. Now, I'm lucky. I only pay for one radio station out of near 30 to be on. And I'll tell you what, in a year's time, I would buy a new car. But all the other radio stations carry me. I don't have to pay nothing. But you know what? They do the advertising. They make their own money. It's like, like you. I have bills and expenses and all this stuff. I have a studio. I don't know if you ever saw a video of my studio on Facebook, but it basically rivals any radio station minus the transmitter. I got servers. I have all this stuff. I run my show on 8 computers. I have all this stuff going, But I tell you what, it sometimes it's hard because you got to carry the load, and
Yep.
I'm trying not to bring much in advertising in on my end because I want to give a 2-hour show is probably equal on my show to somebody's 3-hour show.
Absolutely. Well, if it was just me, I wouldn't have done it. Recently, though, and I had a hard time doing that too for the longest, was somewhere I picked during the show, and it's usually coming back from my right halfway during the show, the long break. I come back and I usually ask as nicely as I can, on bended knee, for all of those that have, really loved the show and like what we're doing. If you could spare a small donation, it would be greatly appreciated. And I only do that because my wife's my producer. God bless her. She's the one that reaches into her own pocket and pays for my airtime. And I can't tell you how many times I've said, honey, isn't there something that's better you could spend your money on? And she just smiles at me, and as she's walking away, she says, I love the show, and then she's gone. But if it's just me, I wouldn't do that. But because it's my wife paying, I make sure I try to ask at least once during the show for donations. But I still feel bad doing that,
Oh, yeah. But going on now, you were 10 years old. And then when did it start getting to be like a almost every week type of situation where you were out, ghost hunting, trying to, find these spirits in people's houses? When did that really start to take effect? How old were you?
Well, for many, many, many years, I hid it, just like anything when you're a kid. People already thought I was a weirdo. I had a lot of friends, don't get me wrong, but people thought I was a little bit of a weirdo, and I didn't want people to think I jumped off the edge of the cliff and I'm just totally gone and not want to be friends with me anymore because they found out that, I saw ghosts and I, helped people with their paranormal issues from time to time. I did dabble a little bit, and I didn't even know it was called ghost hunting back then, but, I would have my bike with a little basket in the front and throw a Polaroid camera in there and a little tape recorder, and I'd drive on my bike out into the middle of the fields and find some old shacks that were still standing or something in a deserted area and go stumbling through the shack and, taking photos and running the tape recorder and stuff. But I usually did that on my own because I didn't have any friends that I knew were into that. But it wasn't until much later in life that I came, for lack of a better term, came out of the closet with that and told people that I really had a passion for it. And it started with me just going to a lot of haunted places just to go on tours, not even to go there and hold an investigation, just to find a haunted location that had a tour and then take the tour. But I have to say, full on, guns a-blazing, paranormal investigating, probably when I met my wife and we started GhostBeGone.biz. And then the cases, we can't even handle the caseload now. I'm constantly doing more counseling over the phone than anything. And you know what? I find those to be some of my most successful cases. If I can counsel, people have to understand they're the only ones that truly have the power to take their life and their home back. And if you just stand by their side against the bullies and teach them how to punch the bully back in the face, that sometimes is the best medicine and the most powerful medicine and gets the best results. If I can counsel a family how to fight back. But, of course, we're ready and willing at any moment to physically go there and do what we do also. But it's just, like I said, my wife and I, so we get a lot of cases, and I can't handle them all. To be honest with you, I'm a little overwhelmed with everything else I got on my plate. So I do refer a lot of cases out to a lot of teams, other teams that I trust here in Vegas. And I do a lot more counseling than I used to. But the wife and I, if I'm not currently working the case at that moment and the case comes across my desk and I make the phone call, and in that initial interview, I realize I need to get there, my wife and I get there. And if my wife, who works, like I said, full-time, and she's the office manager at an animal hospital too, if she can't make it, then I go. And I don't advise people to go and work cases on their own, but you got to do what you got to do. And so I do work many cases by myself, but it wasn't the workload wasn't as such as it is now until my wife and I actually started GhostBeyond.biz.
Oh, wow. And how long ago was that when you started that?
Right after we got married, which was about 17 years ago.
Oh, wow.
But like I said, she's at least 2